I've been a rally fan for a very long time, 17 years in fact. I started watching back in 2007 on a small channel which broadcasted the WRC in my country. Since then, I've been a spectator at rallies both in my country and abroad, worked as a marshal at local motorsport events, including rally sprints. I've also competed in rental cars and recently also on a two-stroke go-kart, and contested the FIA Rally Star Final in Africa, along with competing in some time attack races and sim racing, which I have been doing now for a while. I also have a pretty big collection of model rally cars. However, I've never competed at an actual rally, and I decided that it was about time to do that. After I managed to get that FIA license, which allowed me to compete internationally, as sadly there are no rallies in Israel, having completed 5 local motorsport events, I started to look for an event, and as most of my competitive action was on tarmac, I decided to go for my first rally on a local tarmac rally in Italy at the end of December. After the challenges of searching for a team that will rent the car I wanted, you will see later which car, I finally decided to go for Rally Fetunta, which is a small tarmac rally held around the Florence region. A few days before the rally, I tested the car, which was a Renault Clio Rally 5, a 200 horsepower front-wheel drive rally car which I rented from World Motors Frank, and tested it in Castelletto circuit before the rally. On the test itself, along with testing the car, I also worked with a co-driver on how we will set up the pace notes before the rally. It must be said that it was very challenging to find an English-speaking co-driver, but it was found and we did the test. During the test, despite driving for a short time, I did feel comfortable with the car and the main work went to the pace notes, which already during the test turned out to be more important. On the second one with the car, I took a corner that I thought was quicker than what it really was, and I flew off into the gravel. The car was also on very worn tires, and as there was a local circuit rally held in the same place a few days earlier, grip was reduced, but as it turned out, it was vital information for the rally itself. A few days later, the part of the rally which is called Reconnaissance, or Recce for short, started. We were given 3 passes through the stages and 8 hours to complete them. Normally, this would be more than enough, as it was a short rally, but as the rally was held in early December, daylight hours were numbered, and when we did the final stage, it was complete darkness, and we couldn't see the road properly, which affected the pace notes. During the recce, which is actually the most crucial part of the whole rally, there were several issues. The camera once stopped working, and I struggled to understand the idea of writing the pace notes, as I took an approach which was too mathematical, and drove at times too slowly and focused on things that weren't as important as I thought they are, such as trying to perfect the distance between corners, or driving at a speed where I could see every single thing. Sadly also, the organizers decided that the stages will be open to the public on Recce Day, which didn't improve matters, as I had to share the road with them, which affected the ability to fully concentrate on the road and on the pace notes. One thing that did make things easier though was using the pace notes app, which can much more accurately determine the angle of the corners. I used an app, which I learned on in a video session with Daniel Elena, which helped me to know how to use it throughout the recce. Nowadays it's much easier than when you had to judge by your eyes, something that could lead to a lot more mistakes. Saturday, rally day arrived, and it started with a shakedown. Unfortunately, both on the recce and on the rally itself, the weather was a lottery. It is a good time to say thanks to Fabrizio, who managed to find some sponsors for the rally which helped a lot. Grazie mille a tutti. It was an honor for me to have your names on the car. The temperature was always cold, but the rain was on and off, and I decided to go with cut slicks, as I thought it will be a better option, thinking that the stages will get drier. It didn't turn out to be though, as the road was still very wet from the lack of sun. The rally was held on mountain roads with lots of trees, and the road was both slippery and cold. On the second one through shakedown, I had a slide on a fast corner and nearly ended my rally there already. Thankfully I managed to save the car, but it was a heart-stopping moment, which nearly made me reconsider my adventure. I did one more run, and I still had 2 more runs to do, but then another disaster. Before my fourth one, it turned out that there was an accident in shakedown for one of the leading competitors, which meant the 2 runs that I meant to do were cancelled, and as a result I had even less time in the car. And I also meant to do the last one on cut slicks, which were supposed to be better than the tires which I drove with. But in this sport, nothing is straightforward, so all I could do was wait for the rally to start. The first and second stage were the same stage, which on the second time was when in the dark, which was for me a new experience as well. As I was afraid I would try to push too hard, I asked the co-driver that he will not tell me the times, as I knew that there wasn't really a chance of achieving anything with very limited practice. So the rally started, and as I knew how little grip there was on the first stage, I decided to take it very carefully and did the same thing on the second one, which was my first ever stage in the dark. As it turned out of the 4 drivers in my category, I managed to beat one of the drivers on the second stage. The second day of the rally started again with a lot of questions, as there was a very heavy rainfall during the night, and I decided to go with forward tires, which I never tested before, and didn't know how wet it was, so on the first stage I decided to be very cautious, as it was also a very tricky stage with very narrow roads. The next stages though turned out to be much nicer, and I managed to be on the pace of 2 out of the 3 drivers in my category, where everyone drove the same car, and despite not trying to push, I discovered after the rally that I finished just 2 seconds behind the driver in 3rd place, which at the moment it happened made me disappointed, but later very satisfied to know that I was competitive on the first time I ever competed in a rally. I must thank the World Motors Frank team who did an amazing job, including Alessandro the co-driver, who did his best to adapt to my difficulties as it was my first ever rally. One side of the rally which no one could see, as it was from far and on the phone, was that I had mental help throughout the rally from my former sim coach, Hagai Faran, who I messaged and called throughout the days of the rally, and also after, to keep my head sharp throughout the event, something that in the past was very difficult for me at races. So, that was my first ever rally, and you can be absolutely sure it won't be the last one.